Hi kids! We're making some scones today from the cookbook The Cheese Board Collective Works. Thanks, Ellie. This is from a bakery in San Francisco. It's actually in Berkeley, and they are a consumer-owned co-op, which is really awesome. They make all kinds of breads and pastries, and they sell cheese, and they make pizza. I want to go. So today we're going to be making the currant scones in here, and they sound really awesome. So we're going to start out here. We have some flour that's already sifted. This is 3½ cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. And then I've got baking soda. I have a ½ teaspoon of baking soda, and then a tablespoon of baking powder, which is a lot. So we're going to sprinkle this in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and stir this for a minute. After you make sure that's nice and incorporated, you want to go ahead and add your sugar. And we have 3/4 cup of sugar, and then also the salt, a ½ teaspoon of kosher salt. And again, once we add this, we just want to stir it up really well. You can use a whisk if you have one. Sometimes I use a whisk, sometimes I just go ahead and use a fork. So we'll get that nice and incorporated. Okay, once you have your dry mix to a nice uniform consistency, we're going to get down to the really fun stuff. I have 2 sticks of butter here, and then we've got some buttermilk and some heavy cream, and we have 3/4 cup of each. So we're going to start with the butter. So this is a ½ cup of butter, and you want all of these ingredients, the cream and the buttermilk and the butter, to be really cold. So we just took these out of the refrigerator. If your kitchen is really hot and your hands are really warm, you might want to stick your butter in the freezer for a little while to harden it up. In the summer, it's a little harder to get a really nice scone. So we want to cut our butter in half lengthwise and then flip it and in half again. And then just go ahead and cut pieces that are about 1/4 to a ½ inch in width. Once you have all your butter cut into chunks about this size, you want to go ahead and just toss them all in the bowl. Another really easy way to do this is with the food processor. If you have a food processor, you can just put in your dough blade and start out with your flour and sugar, salt, baking soda, baking powder, and just pulse it a couple of times. And then go ahead and add your butter and do the same thing. And you want it to be a little mealy. You want like some pea-sized chunks left in. I prefer to make scones by hand, but it's a little faster and easier to do it with a food processor. The reason I like doing it by hand is because the chunks of butter aren't as uniform. You're going to get some chunks that are a little bigger, which means you're going to get flakier pockets in your scone, and I like when they're a little flakier. Okay, so once you have all your scones in, if your table's really high, you can hop on a stool, and you just want to go ahead and mash with your hands. And just go ahead and grab that butter and that flour and grind them up. And you're just kind of mashing it in between your hands. And again, you don't want the butter to be completely incorporated. You still want some little chunks in there, but you also want to make sure that all of the big chunks that you started out with have been broken down at least a little bit. Okay, so we are done mixing the flour. So you can see the texture, like I have some chunks that are a little bit bigger. Most of them are just about this size, and that's exactly what we're going for. So now we're going to go ahead and add our currants. And I have a cup of currants here, so I'm going to stick that in and grab my wooden spoon and go ahead and mix in the currants. And then as soon as you've got the currants pretty evenly distributed, you want to go ahead and make a well in the center. You'll see that a lot in baking, and basically what it means is you just push your dry ingredients up along the side a little bit, and then in that hole in the middle is where you pour your liquid. So we've got buttermilk, some nice organic buttermilk, and some heavy cream from Razband. This is a dairy in northern New Mexico. So you just want to kind of swish this around a little bit. You don't need the dough to be a totally uniform consistency. According to this recipe, actually, they say when you make the scones, they should have a rough, rocky texture on the outside. So you want the dough to be pretty consistently moist, but you might have some leftover chunks of flour on the bottom of the bowl, and that's fine. The moister, the better. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and make our scones into balls. And it says about 2 1/4 inches in diameter, so I'm going to go with about this size. And again, you don't want to pack it really tight. You want these to be kind of fluffy, which is another reason you don't want to overmix them. So the less you compress the dough, the lighter and fluffier your scones are going to be.
We're rolling.
Okay kids, we're back, and we got 13 scones out of this batch, and you can see I'm actually gonna, since I ended up not using all the paper, I'm gonna go ahead and space them out a little bit. And we're using a parchment lined cookie sheet. This helps with sticking. It helps to keep the bottoms from burning as well. It's also good for more even heat distribution. So we have a topping here that's a 1/4 cup of sugar and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon that we mixed together that we're going to sprinkle on the scones. But first I'm going to add my own flourish to the recipe and put some heavy cream on top of the scones. I find that this really helps get a nice, like a nice brown, golden brown crumb, and just makes them taste really good. So I'm going to go ahead and take my brush and put heavy cream on all of these, and then after that we'll sprinkle on some cinnamon sugar. Okay, now we are going to sprinkle on our cinnamon sugar. This seems like a lot of cinnamon sugar. This is my first time making this recipe, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm not sure that I'm going to use all of it. I like my scones to be a little sweet, but I don't like them to be overpoweringly sugary. Okay, so this is a pretty good coating on all these scones, and I've only used about half of it, so I'm just going to let that go. And now we put them in a 375-degree oven for, I think, 20 minutes? 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown. So we'll see you when the scones are done. Alright kids, so we took our scones out of the oven. We took them out early. We said cook them for 25 to 30 minutes, but we went ahead and checked them at about 15. And they were done. So, you know, you might want to lower the temperature a little bit. We're also cooking them in a convection oven, so things get a little hotter. But if you're cooking them at home, just set your timer for less time, but they look beautiful, and we tried some, and they are